I'm Dana Denha, and you're watching FYI. Ann Arbor is an innovative place dedicated to the future, a future for every person, regardless of sexual orientation. Year after year, the city hosts a party to support the LGBTQ plus community. Watch.
Ann Arbor Pride, just a day where we all get to come together, celebrate ourselves, be our true, genuine selves, perform, just feel like a whole family, like a whole unity of people.
Pride is a celebration. Pride is a protest. Pride is community.
I think it's important to celebrate who we are and to accept everyone as we are. And that's something that I think this country has forgotten.
In a world where it's hard to find true love, I think it's important that we embrace and allow everyone to love who they want.
This isn't a choice. We were born like this, and we're not stopping. We're not gonna censor ourselves. We're not gonna hide. We're done. We're done. We're just love wins.
Pride becomes a space where you can dress how you want to dress. You can present how you want to present. You can explore and learn about others and connect with others that are different than you. I think the LGBTQ plus community has an immense amount of diversity that we can use to only strengthen the work that we're doing together.
When I say human, I think of anyone who is a Homo sapien, and that we need to be accepting of whatever form and shape that takes.
When you think about the core message around advocacy, education, and community development, it's really around acceptance and love. And we need people to do that. We need people different than us to participate in that. And so whether you just stumble upon Pride because you happen to be in downtown Ann Arbor, or you come here intentionally, I hope it's an experience for everyone.
Stay tuned, and we'll be back with more in exactly 30 seconds. The city is home to more than 160 parks, with scenic views, places to play, and some top-notch facilities. See all that Olson Park has to offer the community during this Park Peak.
Olson Park is a 54-acre parcel that is jointly owned by the City of Ann Arbor and the Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner, located on the corner of DuVerin Road and Pontiac Trail south of M14. The site's main feature is a pond that was constructed to manage stormwater for the northeast area. This park has preserved existing natural features, including the wetlands, woods, the creek and pond, while providing recreational facilities, fields, as well as a dog park. The athletic fields and a large shelter with electricity are available for use by permit. A basketball court, a rock climbing playground, and swings are also located in the park. The park also features single-track mountain bicycle trails suitable for beginner and intermediate level riding, with some higher intermediate areas. A trail map is provided at the marked trailhead, including instructions for direction of travel on the trails and general rules for all who use the trails. During extremely wet conditions or spring thaw, help prevent trail erosion by avoiding non-paved trails. All trails within the park are open to multi-use. There is also a paved pedestrian pathway that loops around the pond. For more information, visit a2gov.org/parks.
The city of Ann Arbor has numerous ways to connect with residents and business owners. Learn more about staying in the know in this month's City Roundup in 60.
Hi, I'm Joanna Satterley, City of Ann Arbor Communications Manager. Do you want to know what's going on in the city? Here's how to stay informed. Subscribe to city topics that interest you, and you'll get bulletins delivered straight to your email inbox and messages. There are many topics to choose from. Visit a2gov.org/subscribe to get started. Make sure you're notified in urgent situations, online or by phone. Sign up for the emergency alert system Everbridge. Don't delay. Go to a2gov.org/alerts to learn more. Interested in attending a meeting or event? The digital calendar gives a glimpse of what's happening and when. Save the date, all the dates, at a2gov.org/calendar. Is video more your style? CTN's got you covered with locally produced programs, news and talk shows, and an electronic bulletin board 24/7 with events and announcements community-wide. Watch CTN channels 16 through 19 on Comcast Cable, or catch the action online and on demand at youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor and a2gov.org/watchctn. Social media is another great place for the latest city news. Follow along on Twitter or X at a2gov. Search The City of Ann Arbor on LinkedIn and Facebook, and residents find us on Nextdoor. Finally, the city website, a2gov.org, is your official source for all things City of Ann Arbor. Visit for news, opportunities, and information on projects, elections, parks and rec, city services, and so much more. It's all here at a2gov.org.
In the 21st century, we celebrate people's differences and want everyone to live their truest self. It's hard to believe there was a time that some people still living today experienced where hiding the truth of oneself was the norm. Being openly gay was rarely seen or heard of, and PTD is stepping back in time to tell a story of secrecy and how honesty can create chaos. Joining me is Jacob Williams Justin, director of PTD's production of Perfect Arrangement. Welcome to the show, Jacob.
Thank you for having me, Dana.
Well, I like to start when I talk to a director with their experience with the theater. Were you an actor? Were you building sets? What have you done so far?
Yeah, of course. I was always involved with theater growing up, just in the schools, being involved with it and just following that through with high school, and then just really fell in love with theater and drama. And I got my BFA in acting. And I came back here to Michigan. I had previously moved to California, and then I moved back just about right before the pandemic. So theaters were closing. And then when theaters started to open back up, audition postings were happening, and I got involved with PTD, and I have never left.
I think PTD is such a gem to this area. It really gives people opportunities that you may not have without that organization. Have you directed shows before, or is this your first time?
I have got my first taste in directing in college when I assisted directed a show briefly. And then when I got involved with PTD within the past 2 years or so, I auditioned for the show Rumors that was directed by my assistant director now, Liz Greaves-Hoxie, and was not cast, but through just being around and being involved, I was asked to stage manage that show. And then later that fall, I assistant directed one of my cast members, Carrie Warla's show, The Sweet Delilah Swim Club. But I submitted to direct Perfect Arrangement that summer in between. So this is my first debut as a director.
And how lucky you are to have Liz as your assistant director. I've known Liz for years. She's so great.
Yes, she's so fantastic. She's been acting as my second brain throughout this whole thing.
And she's directed a lot of shows. She's acted in a lot of shows. She's got a ton of experience.
Yes, I'm very pleased to have her as an assistant director, and she even reached out personally to inquire about it. So I'm very grateful to have her.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I was curious how you end up with the assistant director or producer per se that you might have. If it's you reaching out to people, if they come to you, if PTD helps with it.
It's like a grab bag of everything. Generally, with newer directors working with PTD, they kind of figure that all out amongst themselves to fully support the director, which I am grateful for. Everyone's been a fantastic team to work with.
Well, yeah, and it has to be so different being directing the show yourself because it's just everything's on your shoulders. The whole show is you, basically. You're
Yeah.
deciding how the actors act in a scene and telling them if they're doing a good job. You're sort of deciding the set and everything.
Yeah, in a creative umbrella kind of way, absolutely. That's one of the joys of theater, is that everyone brings their own thing and does something different. One thing I've learned is that there's 3 shows that happen. There's the show that you plan in your head, there's the show you rehearse, and there's the show that happens. So that's always good to keep in mind for me.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Why don't you tell us about Perfect Arrangement, sort of a synopsis without giving too much away, and then tell us why you wanted to be the director of this show, because we all know being the director is a lot of work and you actually have to hear the lines in this play so many times, like over and over and over again. You have to enjoy the show in order to direct.
Yes, of course. I actually, well, let me start off with the summary of the play. It follows 2 characters, Bob and Norma, who work for the U.S. State Department in the early 1950s, and they have been tasked with rooting out sexual deviants within their government offices. And well, I don't want to say unfortunately, but coincidentally, they also are gay, and they have married each other's respective partners as a kind of cover story to truly survive through their time. And I stumbled upon it, funnily enough, when I was submitting for a show to direct for this season. It was in the midst of Roe v. Wade being overturned. So it was a very tumultuous time politically, so I knew I wanted to touch on that. And this is such a true story of our times, which is so crazy to think that we're still dealing with this kind of oppression, to speak. There's a theme in the play of performing, that we're putting on a show for people in order to survive and get along as we need to. So that's what really resonated with me, and having to read that 50 times over and over really gave me so many different points of view to work with.
When I was looking up stuff about this story, it mentions that this was actually based on a true story.
Yes, it definitely is. And that's what I like about it, is the playwright was really smart in that way. There's name drops of several people in the time. We have Cole Porter, who wrote and directed a couple Broadway shows, and then Jack Purefoy, President Truman, Secretary of State Atchison, who was roommates with Cole Porter in college. Cole Porter being an actual homosexual man who had indeed married a woman to get through everything. He had found himself a beard and was living double lives.
Talk about this show being set in the 1950s, and obviously that speaks to this sort of aura of secrecy that goes on with it, but it also is sort of a big deal for you as a director because your sets have to be set in this era, as well as the clothing and everything. So that's sort of a task in itself, is going back in time for a show.
Yeah, going back in time was interesting for me because I learned several things while reading this play, such as that the lavender scare, which is what is the root of this play, happened immediately after the Red Scare, where the government was looking for, like I had said, sexual deviants, homosexuals, women who just enjoyed their time with men. And it was eye-opening in that way. But with the set, it has this setup where it's kind of sitcom-like a TV show that you would see. So we have a black and white set that was expertly thought out and planned by our set designer and master builder, Jerry Doty and Laura Bird. And our props master, Ruth Bader, she took on grayscaling all of the characters' props and everything like that. So everything that is on set is going to be like gray, white, just like you would see in a 50s TV show. So that was really exciting and really different to work with, and a welcome challenge.
How cool. I wouldn't even think about putting everything in grayscale like that. That really adds another element to watching the show in person.
Yeah, it was another layer of the performance theme that I had mentioned that we're putting on this show. People are coming in and they're seeing this. And I remember watching shows like Leave It to Beaver, I Love Lucy, the Ozzie and Harriet show with my grandma. She had them on DVDs. So taking that and seeing like, oh, that was something I enjoyed growing up and like watching, and then learning that all this other stuff was happening under the scenes as well was really like jarring.
Well, you mentioned that sort of sitcominess about it. Does the show incorporate humor? It's got, I mean, it's got heavy things that are discussed in it, bigotry, things like that, but is it sort of like in that sense where you like get that, like, you know, sitcoms and you get the canned laughter and that sort of aspect? Yes.
Yes, the pacing of the show is very sitcom-like, and it has to be. We're talking about very deep emotional things that we're dealing with in life. It has to be approached with a kind and kind of humorous edge to it. They always say a comedy is when someone trips and they fall and they get back up. If they don't get back up, then it's a tragedy.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the cast of the show? We like to hear about who's in the show, the characters that are playing.
Yes. We have Gary Lehman, who has been with PTD before. He was also in Rumors. He's playing Bob Martindale, who is kind of the mastermind of this arrangement that our characters find themselves in. He was a veteran, and he's now working with the personnel board with the US State Department. And he has worked out this system where he is able to protect the people that he has with him to survive. And it was funny during like auditions because what Gary has done with his role was completely left field and welcome from what I had in my head for who Bob was. And Gary really brought something of himself to it that I think is very personal and really wonderful to watch throughout the rehearsal process. Then we have Sky Earle, who is playing Norma Baxter. She is Bob's secretary in the US State Department, and she is a very snarky character. She has this strength that is deep within her, and it's like scratching for the surface. And Sky has done a wondrous job of really arcing Norma from beginning to end and really giving her the room to grow and come into herself. Then we have Rebecca Lane, who was in the Sweet Delilah Swim Club. She is playing Millie Martindale, who is Bob's wife. And she is a very smart woman. She is playing the game as best as she can, as best as she knows how. She's very quick-witted. She's very on her feet, and she's really gotten in the swing of things in this arrangement they've worked out. So once things start to interfere with it, kind of shakes Millie up within her and really forces her to really come to terms with herself and what she wants out of life. Then we have Andrew Packard, who is playing Jim Baxter, who is Norma's husband, but Bob's partner, truthfully. And he's one of the comic reliefs that we have in this show that is wonderful. And Jim as a character is very, I don't want to say flippant. Flippant's not the right word, but he's very one side of the fence or other. He's reactive, he's joyous when he is, and then when he's not, he's not. And he just encompasses the kind of freedom, I want to say, of Jim is just special. It's hard to
Put into words.
put it into words.
Yeah.
Exactly, because we know these people. These are all people who live in real life. And Jim just cares so much about where he is and Bob and Millie and the relationships that he's had. And he's joyous. He's a teacher. He cares, and he has this heart to him that just pulls at me, and it's been pulling at me in rehearsals to see Andrew work with that. And then we have Jerry Jody, who plays Theodore Sunderson, who is Bob and Norma's boss, and he is interesting. I don't want to give anything away to his character that might be gathered from the show, but he's interesting, and he really thinks he's doing something good for the country. He's the one who gives Bob and Norma the task to root out everybody and everything like that, but he really believes that this is what's good for the country. No one thinks they're the bad guy, in their own stories. So that's what's interesting, because Jerry himself is a very kind, very nice person, would never harm a fly or anything. So to see that other side is so just wondrous to see.
It's props to his acting ability, right?
Absolutely. It's like a complete 180.
Yeah.
And then we have Beth Dewey, who plays Kitty Sunderson, Ted's wife. And Kitty is really one of the beating hearts for this show. She is along for the ride. She's not unintelligent, but can be perceived as so. She's very surface level, trusts everybody, but then, she plays the housewife part. But Beth gives her an emotional depth that really kind of connects with the thought that people might not agree with what's going on in the moment, but there's really nothing that can be done on a small scale, so to speak. She's kind of a character of the times, so to speak, but she's not left behind, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then last we have Carrie Warla playing Barbara Grant, the antagonist, so to speak, in this show. She is a bi woman, and she also works for the U.S. State Department as a translator who has been brought back overseas because a complaint has been filed against her. And she is unafraid of living her life however she sees, however she wants. She's not ashamed of anything, which is kind of what gives her that antagonist edge, because she's the one who confronts the Baxters and the Martindales with their truth and what's really worth living for.
Why did you feel like, or why do you feel like it's important to tell this story now in 2023? Like you mentioned, the 1950s were a completely different time. And if you were in the LGBTQ community you were hiding for the most part. You know, you might have this one character that might be a little more open to saying like, I don't care, this is my true self. But it really does resonate with what goes on today, where we think that we've progressed in so many ways and people can be who they are more, but there's still these roadblocks where you feel like you might not be hiding who you are, but people want you to, and they make you feel uncomfortable. And I think for me, telling a story like this, it's important because it could almost be like a light bulb situation where it's like, this happened, 70 plus years ago. Why am I still locked in this old school mentality?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always hard to gain one's acceptance, whether it's with peers, whether it's in your community as a whole, even on a government recognition level. It's hard, and working out of being in an oppressed state, even when there are good steps happening, it's always like a one step forward, two step back kind of situation, because there's always going to be someone who denies your right to exist or just doesn't want you to at all. And that's the scary thing. And even recently, I was fortunate enough not to have to worry about my family being concerned about my orientation, which is grateful, but I know others who haven't been so lucky. So reading it and really kind of being humbled in a sense and being brought out of comfortability really affected me in a way that wanted me to touch into this and kind of bring it to more people, because these are lessons that still need to be learned.
When is the show?
The show starts August 16th, so that's this Thursday, and then it runs through the 26th at 8 p.m. on Thursday through Saturday, and then on our Sunday and Wednesday matinees, we start at 2 p.m.
One of the great things about PTD is they always give you plenty of chances to go see a show. So it's not like just a one weekend deal. Everyone puts in so much work on these shows, and it's nice to have so many show times for people to actually get in the seats and experience all your hard work.
Yes.
Before we go, why don't you just tell people why they should come check out this perfect arrangement that you're directing?
Of course, people should come see it because it's funny, it's got laughs, it's got heart, it's got a lesson. It really taps into the roots of storytelling, where you're seeing a show and then you're coming out having learned something at the end. And people have put a lot of work into it. It's really fantastic. It's new, it's fresh. I've never seen a show with a black and white set before, so that was fun.
All right, well, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the show, Jacob.
Thank you for having me, Dana.
For more on this and other programs, visit a2gov.org/CTN, visit youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor to see all that we have to offer, and remember to like, subscribe, and ring that notification. Thanks for watching, and tune in next time to FYI.